Let's get into it, Dean.
200-year-old recipe that started the craft, inspired the craft. Rob Houston, how are you, sir?
Not as good as you look, Dean Sir Niels. How are you, my friend?
Well, it might be hard to do that. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Welcome to National Flair Bartenders Day. This is seminar 3 today, so look at us go.
We're getting stuff done, all leading up to the live broadcast of the Cocktail Art Challenge starting at 5 p.m., anchored by Kevin Gibbons and Jules Aaron. Had to think about it a second because it wasn't us.
Right. Yes. Yeah. How cool is that, right? That's how you're supposed to build things, right? You have to get other people doing some other pieces of the puzzle. So Kevin Gibbons and Jules, what's your last name?
Jules Aaron.
Jules Aaron. I think I've met her very, very briefly. So very much looking forward to the broadcast there. Kevin, of course, being a Flair bartender and bartender trainer, and Jules being an author about cocktails. So they should complement each other very, very well on screen, and very much looking forward to that. So thanks to those two individuals. So I'm sure you guys are gonna have a great show tonight. I will not be there myself. I'm sorry. So
Because we're here now, and that's all that matters, buddy.
we're here right now. And I want to share with our Flair bartender friends one of the ways that I use to create cocktails. I do have a thing that says, or a motto, have many mentors. And have many mentors means if you think some of what I'm talking about today is complete bullshit, that's fine. Have many mentors so that you can learn from other people as well. And then you can go, you know what, I really like that piece. I really like that piece, and create something of your own. And you're not just recreating what I say today. And you get to create your own experience and learn from many, many different people. So have many mentors, learn from many different angles, and try to look at things from different perspectives. That's one of my life mottos. So we're going to get into this. Rob has no idea what's going to happen today.
I'm excited because I know Dean, and when he puts together seminars, he's put a lot of thought, effort, time, blood, sweat, tears, and booze into it. So let's get into it.
There's definitely been a lot of moves in this one. This actually dates back probably 20 plus years when Matt Jones and I were putting together programs, and Philip Duff taught me about how to create cocktails, and then I got into my own research of the lore of cocktails, and I discovered a long known fact that the first time the cocktail was ever put in print was back in 1806. The definition of the cocktail made it into print because there was two politicians arguing, and one of the politicians said that the other politician just likes to drink cocktails all day. And someone wrote in and said, well, what does cocktails mean? And the definition was printed. In short, I won't go into the whole thing about the politicians, except for the fact that it's clear that politicians are still arguing the exact same way 218 years later.
Still with
However,
cocktails.
right, I'm sure they're all on cocktails now. Anyway, the definition, in short, extracting what I need out of it today: spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. It was a stimulating liqueur, etc., etc. But all I want to work with today on how to create our own cocktails is using the definition of spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. All right, Robbie, are you ready?
I'm ready, willing, and ready to go, buddy.
All right. So, Rob, I need you to take your rocks glass that you have in front of you, and let's define spirits of any kind. So, what I'm hoping to inspire our viewers to do today is to be able to create their own cocktails. Okay. So, spirits of any kind. And back in 1806, there's a very good chance that that spirit was brandy. So, I have Presidente brandy. So, do you have some brandy there, Robbie?
I just happen to have some Fundador brandy who's sponsoring the
How
competition
ironic is
today.
that? Awesome. So let's pour ourselves a couple of ounces of brandy. All right, that might be a couple and a little bit of brandy. However, so bourbon I mean, I'd have to go right back into the books, but bourbon and vodka and gin was probably out there. But when it comes to turn of the century of the 1800s in the United States of America, brandy would have been the most common spirit of choice. Do you agree to that, Robert?
From what the books have told me and what Diana Green has pumped in my brain, yes.
All right, very good. So I'm glad that I have a cocktail expert with me to verify or tell me I'm full of crap. All right, so Rob, let's take a look at this, but let's smell it. And I want you to be very honest. What's the first thing you smell?
I get like caramel, apple, and wood.
Right, that's because you're a nerd and you've opened up all those cocktail books and you read a whole bunch about it, right? That's what you know is already in it, right?
Well, and then
That's
you
the
also get, if you want to be honest, like the alcohol. Yes, 100%. You
right.
get that
Very
alcohol
good. Very good.
before you do anything else. So I'm going to lead you to where you're going. Yes.
It's so much fun when I do this for groups. Like I do this for large groups of people, and they're all smelling, and they're like, "Ooh, I smell my grandmother's front porch." But it comes down to the very first thing you smell is the alcohol. So give that a smell. You smell some ethyl whatever, some alcohol, right? This is even better with bourbon because brandy is so much smoother than bourbon. But when
Yeah.
you smell the bourbon, the alcohol just comes up and it kind of gives you a punch in the face. Let's give it a taste now, Rob. I
Alcohol.
love Rob's eyes closed, just kind of
Oh, that's what I do. I purposely, anytime I taste something, I close my eyes to cut off one of those senses so I can
right.
really develop what I'm tasting.
So what's the first thing you taste there, Rob?
Alcohol.
Alcohol, 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 right? And I challenge myself to wonder why the distillers create a product that tastes just like alcohol straight up, right? Because you really have to learn about it and study it in order to get to the flavors inside it, which is what we're going to talk about today. So alcohol in the front, alcohol in the burn. When I do this with bourbon, people are coughing and stuff because they're just not used to drinking it straight. So let's look at the definition. Spirits of any kind. Rob, if you could help me name off spirits of any kind.
Vodka, gin, rum, whiskey, tequila, aquavit, wine, beer, sake.
Awesome. You've you've already done 100 times better than any presentation I've had with live groups of people. All right. Wine, beer, and sake you mentioned as well. Spirits of any kind. They have alcohol content in them, so I always like to include them in this because I do like to make beer cocktails and use that as the base sometimes. All right, but let's keep moving forward. Spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. So spirits of any kind being anything with alcohol in it. Spirits of any kind. Now let's move on. I'm going to skip sugar and come back to it, and let's talk about water. All right. Today I would like to use ice cubes as my water. All right. Ice cubes to me, if I was a carpenter, ice cubes would be the nails and the screws that I need to perform my craft of building houses. All right. So the ice cubes are, and the water from the ice cubes bring the ingredients in a cocktail together into one unique cocktail. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it makes perfect sense.
All right. So the ice cubes are the nails and screws. Let's add a couple of ice cubes and just swirl it around. Rob, we are not looking to do any proper techniques or proper anything else. It's just getting down to tasting the flavors of what's happening. All right. If you want to stir it with your finger, I'm totally fine. You can get as barbaric as you want. All right.
Gary Regan
You know,
style.
Gary Regan there. All right. Well known to Gary. So swirl that around. Now let's smell this again. Let's see what happened when we added ice cubes or some water. Tell me your experience.
Definitely more subdued on the alcohol and more of the caramel just comes straight forward.
Right. The alcohol starts to drop down. So you can start getting some more orange. And like you said, you're smelling some more caramel now. Let's give it a taste and tell me your experience of the taste now that we've added a few ice cubes.
The ice and the water definitely brought the proof down, so it lets the flavors come through. So I get a lot of leather in the back end, some caramel in the front, but it's a definitely totally different experience just by adding ice cubes.
Right. Let it be known that Rob has had leather on the back end. Um, so you're starting to get some other flavors coming up underneath because the ice cubes have taken the alcohol down. The ice cubes have gotten the alcohol out of the way. So we can now start to taste some of the other flavors that the distiller specifically put in there, right? You talk about the caramel and the some leather and some smoky flavors. Let's go to our next step, but first, let's talk about water. Let's talk about other sources of water. And let me add my editor note if I can. Non-alcoholic liquids. So any non-alcoholic liquid would act like water in this cocktail and bring the alcohol content down and would start mixing with the other flavors. So let's name off different non-alcoholic liquids that we could find. Rob?
Does that include like citrus and juices and
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, citrus
Citrus.
juices,
Yeah.
flavored syrups, a lot of the stuff that you make over at ABM with Finest Colin Real infused syrups.
Ironic.
Yeah, don't you think?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Water, ice, and then just different types of ice on top of it. I'm sure it can totally
Right.
change and play with the presentation of the visual as well as the aroma
Absolutely.
and taste.
Right. Tea, right? Teas and waters, creams as well, fruit juices, any kind of non-alcoholic liquid is going to work when we're searching for spirits of any kind and water of any kind, if you can allow me to go in that direction. And again, this is exactly what I use when I'm creating cocktails. So let's jump back and grab the sugar. All right, spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. Let's go back and grab some sugar. I have some Finest Call simple syrup here, which is actually sugar and water. Right? So the definition could be done just with this. And you have some master mixes.
Yep, and I believe it's the same juice in the bottle, or is it slightly different? That I don't know for sure.
It is. It is. When you tour the Finest Call or the American Beverage Marketers plant, where we make all these great mixers, syrups, and juices, that we have 2,000 pound bags of sugar lifted by a forklift to go into these mixes and pre-batches. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, it's the same cane sugar and water. And that's all we're making at the bar. If you can make simple syrup at the bar, that's great. There's plenty of bars and restaurants that need a little help from their friends. So let's just put a little splash in there, not too much. All right, because I don't want that to overtake the cocktail at this point, or I guess it's not a cocktail yet by definition, but to take over the flavor profile. And give that a little spin with your finger, your spoon, or whatever, and hopefully you can follow along at home with this. It is a fun experiment. You can pause the video along the way and have these conversations with your friends right in your own living room and talk about the flavors that you're experiencing. So, Rob, get your nose in the glass. How does that change the experience?
I get still a lot of caramel, but it's definitely a sweeter caramel now, which is crazy because I would be surprised I can smell sugar.
Right. Yes, you can smell sugar. You can smell that this is a little sweeter now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
That's that.
And,
You got me on that one. I wasn't expecting that part.
and let's give it a little taste now. And talk to me about the flavors you're tasting now, Rob.
A lot more wood in the front, and that leather on the back end with your joke. Very, very subdued.
Very good. So wood on the front and leather on the back.
Yeah.
Alrighty then, Rob. Let's try not
I'm
to
just setting
take
him up
this
for you, buddy.
You know, I would be talking just like this in front of a live group of people. So this is Dean Cerneals, ladies and gentlemen. Like it or not, have many mentors. All right. So we smell it, and you get some of the other flavors starting to come up. There's true caramel there now. Uh, and sugars, and there's orange zest now coming up and through, and the wood notes and the smoky wood notes. You might even say that it's burnt caramel that's coming up through the flavors of the profile. And you still get the alcohol, but the burn is certainly not as punch in the face as it was when we tasted it without the other ingredients, right? So
Correct.
here's spirits of any kind, sugar, water. Still pretty good by my standards. And bitters. Let's reach for some bitters. Oh, but before we do, hold on.
But wait, there's more.
Different sources of sugar. We didn't talk about our different sources of sugar. Tell me about the different sources of sugar that we can find, Rob.
Besides syrups, cordials are a great source of sugar.
Right.
Fruits are a great source of sugars.
Yep.
Some even
Cream
juices.
has sugar in it.
Yeah.
Right? Cream has sugar in it. And all the fruits, like you said, all kinds of fruit juices. You smash those fruits up in a glass, you're getting lots of sugars and non alcoholic liquid like water, right? Out of those, candies, Twinkies. We laugh about my Twinkie colada coming soon on One Drink With.
Looking forward to that tremendously.
Anywhere that you can find sweet anything, we can take that sugar. If we can extract that sugar from it, we could technically put it into this this formula of creating cocktails. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Right? We can take a candy cane, smash it up, add some water, make it back into a candy cane syrup, and add it into a drink. Right?
It makes sense. Yeah, I'm with
Spirits of
you.
any kind, sugar of any kind, water of any kind. Let's now reach for some bitters. All right. When I say the word bitters, everyone goes straight to this little bottle. That's the first thing they think of, and they say that's what bitters is. All right. But Rob, I want you to explore this with me, if you will. I'm looking for other sources of bitter flavors.
Besides bitters or flavored bitters?
Let's explore both. Flavored
Okay.
bitters first. All right. So yes, there's hundreds and hundreds, probably, of different styles of bitters. Those are the Fee brothers, which happen to be my favorite bitters. They are non-alcoholic, and look at he's just got them going, going, going. All right. There's some Doug Graff bitters, and right. So those are all kinds of different versions of bitters. My brief research pulled out that the Angostura bitters didn't come into fashion or be created until 1824, which is 18 years later than the 1806 definition. So they could not have been using Angostura bitters in this definition. Interesting enough.
So do you think they're using quinine or bark or citrus peels and things like that?
That's what brings into the rest of the conversation, Rob. Other styles of bitter flavors. Where can we find bitter flavors in the world? Coffee, chocolate, right? And where else can you find bitter flavors? I'm waiting for you to say it. Well, you did actually start going there, so I'm going to give you a chance.
Well, there's also, just herbs and dandelions and things like that are found common right outside the bar.
Yes. Yes, and you mentioned orange.
Quinine, yeah. Yes.
Right. But let's talk about the orange for a second. All right. The essential oils on the outside of the orange are considered bitters, right? And then if we were to press the orange, the white pith inside is very bitter, right? But if we look at all kinds of other fruit, let's look at grapes for a second. If we took a grape, where would the bitter and tart flavors be in a grape? So this is another editorial license that I take. I take bitters and I kind of mesh bitters and tart together. All right,
Okay.
if that's fair. Some people would be like, absolutely not, but some people, I kind of get it. You know what I mean? But for me, I need to have them together as this mentor speaks. So, uh, the grape.
I'm assuming the bitter would be the skin or the peel, and the inside would be not so bitter.
Right. It wouldn't be as bitter. It'd be kind of juicy and probably more sugar and non-alcoholic liquid, right? If we were to mash up a grape. But if we mash up a grape with the skins, that's where the tannins of the grape are, and some of the bitter and more tart flavors of the grape come in. And if we look at all fruit, it's kind of similar, right? Even if we look at a strawberry, the outside rind or the outside of the strawberry has a little bit more flavor than the inside of the strawberry. So if you've ever had an unripened strawberry, you might call it bitter. Would you agree to that?
I can't remember the last time I had an unripened strawberry, so I can't speak on that. Sorry,
Right,
buddy.
or just a not perfectly ripe strawberry. You know, when you eat fruit, if it's ripe or not ripe, I mean, the super ripe fruit is very sugary and very
Yeah.
sweet, right? But an unripened fruit is usually a little bit more bitter, a little bit more tart. Okay, so that brings fruit into the equation, which is very, very important. So let's first take our bitters and put a couple of dashes of bitters in there. All right, because all bitters have all kinds of unique flavors in them. Swirl that around, and let's talk about what the bottled bitters does for this cocktail, and then we'll go back and we'll re-explore the other bitters. All right. So give it a smell. What are you smelling now?
Now I get spice because I'm using Dale de Gras pimento bitters, so that's definitely
Right.
spice, clove, cardamom. So I definitely
Yeah.
smell that with meshed in beautifully balanced with the caramel from the Funador brandy.
Absolutely. Isn't that beautiful? I'm getting some horsehair and maybe some saddle leather, but definitely
I
other
got my paddle
spices.
back
We
here
got
somewhere. I was looking for it when you were talking about it earlier.
I'm having a little bit of fun with it, playing with it, trying to keep some of the pretentiousness out of it, but talking about the flavors of it so that we can better understand these because I am getting to a point, I promise. All right. So the bitters coming in, adding some real depth to the other ingredients and bringing the flavors together, right? So let's give this a taste.
Definitely more complex now. It adds layers of flavors. The bitters gives me that cardamom, that clove in the beginning. The water kind of mellows out there, and then I get a nice finish of the caramel. So it adds depth and complexity to the cocktail.
Absolutely. Brilliantly described, just by the way, how just a few drops of bitters can get in there and explode the cocktail and bring out all those flavors. So, Rob, what's the name of this cocktail?
It is the De Groff Delight, or the
Otherwise
old
known as the
fashioned.
old fashioned, right?
The original old fashioned, but I'm so curious. Is it the original old fashioned? Was it with brandy? Was it whiskey? I don't know the answer to that, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts on it.
Here's a story that I'll tell you, and at the end, I will have told you more than I know. So, imagine you're a traveler in the early 1800s and you travel around the beginning of your career and all you can get is spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters as a beverage. It's the only thing you can ever get. And then come the 20s and the 1830s, people start shaking up different ingredients. We've got ice cubes come in 1818. Bitters comes in 1824. So now bartenders are shaking up all kinds of crazy stuff and they're making all these crazy, wacky, wild cocktails. And I'm this old seasoned guy and I walk in and I watch all these bartenders and I'm like, can I just have a cocktail made the old fashioned way? Can you just make an easy one the old-fashioned way? So the story goes that the name of the old-fashioned is more about the direction that it is a simple cocktail made in an old-fashioned way, and that's how people referred to it, as opposed to a cocktail that was created and then named the old-fashioned.
Very true. I've heard the same thing, and I can't dispute that. But now that opens up another conversation: is
Yes.
did Wisconsin get it right, or did they have it right and screwed it up?
We talked about that on one of our past episodes of One Drink with Diana Green, or One More Drink with Diana Green. I don't remember where that popped in, but yeah, I think Wisconsin had it right to begin with, and then took it in other directions and got too creative with, well, really what this definition is, right? Spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. They got really creative with what the sugar and water part was. Uh, and that gets into a different debate about the old fashioned. Very important with what we're talking about today is to reground this, because there's a whole lot of lore in here. I get it. But the goal of what we're doing today is to try to figure out how to make our own cocktails, right? So if I have a cocktail recipe, let's say the margarita, right? So lime, sugar, tequila, and some triple sec or cointreau, orange liqueur, right? Let's take a look at that recipe, spirits of any kind. If I take out the spirit of tequila and put in the spirit of rum, what does that cocktail more resemble, not including the triple sec part of the conversation?
A daiquiri
It's a
and chicken
daiquiri,
daiquiri.
right? I take out the rum and I put in a gin. What is it?
Gin Ricky. Is that
A
right?
gin Ricky with the soda, or a gimlet,
Gimlet. There
truly,
you go.
right?
Back
More recognized with sweetened lime juice. However, if I take that out and I put vodka in, what do I have? This might stump Rob.
with the triple sec, a kamikaze.
Oh, you got it. Damn, Rob, you're just so good. You're just so good.
First cocktail I ever had when I was 14. Thank you, Uncle Glenn.
Uncle Glenn. Yeah, I stump people at my bar with that one all the time. They're like, they can't figure out the kamikaze. But Rob, what if I take the kamikaze and I add cranberry juice to it?
Ooh, then you got a cosmopolitan, basically.
Right. What if I take the kamikaze and I add ginger beer to it?
A mule.
Right.
Without the
It's the
triple sec, I
Moscow
guess.
Mule.
Yeah.
Right? So by taking that one basic recipe of spirits of any kind, sugar, lime juice, and the bitters being some of the orange, perhaps, it kind of gives us all those different families, right? Now, don't bust my balls on not being perfect with the triple sec and all that stuff. All right, I'm not looking to go there today. All right. I'm looking to break down the four different flavors, because I can take any cocktail or start with any spirit and grab a spirit. Let's say I'm grabbing gin, sugar, water, and bitters. Now I need to find all those things that we just mentioned about spirits of any kind. Sugar, where are all my different sources of sugar? They're all over the place. Most of those sugars are going to work with the gin. Spirits of any kind, sugar, water. What other kinds of water can I find? Maybe it's a juice. And then bitters. And the bitters comes in to balance and kind of bring all those ingredients together. All right. And we're not even talking about drink making techniques at this point, right? I don't want to bring those in, because that's another seminar. You know what I mean? And another phase. But when I'm creating cocktails, I always sit back and go, spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. Are all of those elements present in the cocktail? It doesn't mean I need four ingredients, but I need the ingredients to represent all four of those in order for me to use the ice cubes to bring those into balance. Does that make sense, Rob?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So for you, the definition of the cocktail is how you structure your cocktails moving forward. And as long as you have four of those components, somehow it could be four, it could be three, could be two, depending what you use. As long as you have all four of those components in your cocktail, it's a complete cocktail.
Right, right. All those flavor profiles somehow represented. I mean, you could do that with two ingredients, right? Like vodka and orange juice. Technically, those flavors are represented in there. But I use that as my basis for how to create my own specialty cocktails. It's a little loose for sure, but it needs to be loose because after this portion, it becomes an art form, right? It becomes the art of knowing which ingredients better fit with each one of the spirits and knowing which ones to reach for. But you'd be surprised at how many cocktails that you think are just a gin cocktail that you can actually put a brown spirit in and have it successful with. So don't be afraid to experiment and taste and try. Use this as a loose framework, but the spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters, the 1806 definition of the cocktail is what grounds me to creating signature cocktails for bars and restaurants and our databases and all that kind of stuff. So that's all I wanted to share today. Was exactly that, and you were a fantastic pupil today.
Thanks, brother. Let's take it just one more step further with staying within your confines, though, without
Please,
going into
please.
ratios or
Yeah.
techniques. But let's have a quick discussion on what inspires you to come up with recipes. Like, what do you use for inspiration?
It has to come from many different places. And I guess it comes partially because of who and why I'm creating it.
Mhm.
If it's a national account, I have to research the national account, potentially go to the national account. I want to find out how well trained the bartenders are and how inspired they are. Can they carry off the recipe that I want to create? So my inspiration comes from many different places. I usually start with a spirit. Um, but the inspiration comes from the website, potentially some of the foods, and kind of the personality, I guess, around the person asking me or the group asking me to create the cocktails. So I'm trying to pull on their personality. What is that group about? And then I try to create cocktails that best fit that personality. If that doesn't lend into the art form more than anything.
Nice. For me, like you said, it depends what the occasion is. If I'm doing a
Yeah,
cocktail competition and it's sponsored by, let's say, Funador Brandy again, then I'm going to start with Funador Brandy and really pull from it. And like I'll taste it a couple times. Like, what's it begging? What does it need? What is it asking for? And start from there. If it's for a certain account, I'll look at their menu and see what they're currently doing, and let's do something that you're not doing to fill in those gaps.
right,
Um,
right.
what my favorite is just going from the hip and just going to like a candle store or trying a different piece of bubble gum with a different flavor and candle stores and
The soap
smelling it.
store, right?
Yeah, smelling those smells. I'm like, oh my god, mint, cucumber, watermelon. That yes, I'm gonna do a cocktail with that. So then it doesn't matter what the spirit is. Now this is my profile I want to go to.
Right,
I love doing that and different things or like the big marketing companies like Red Bull or all these water companies that come out with all these new flavors. They're already spending the money to see what's the trends are and what's up and coming. So if they're already
right.
telling you they think is going to be a hot flavor, I'm like, well, let me start messing with those flavors and see where it goes.
That's very
So I
good.
kind of go.
That's a great place to start. That way, when you're out shopping any grocery store or any store, you can get inspiration from. I think what I like most about this presentation is when you do it with any spirit of any kind. If you pour some gin in here, some pisco, or some mezcal, or whatever you start with, and you add some water and go through the exercise of seeing how it changes. And like Rob does, he shuts off a sense so that he can try to better taste what's in there or smell what's in there. By doing this with any spirit, add your sugar, add your water, spin it around. You don't even have to add bitters at that point. You'll start to understand the other flavors that I think the distiller was intending to have in there. Corn is going to bring a lot of caramel and butterscotch versus the grapes and the brandy versus potatoes in the vodka, for instance. Um, So that's where I like to start with any spirit, is to break it down with spirits of any kind. I add some sugar or water to it to find out the other flavors that are deep inside the spirit so that I can then work with it.
Exciting stuff, brother. So we challenge you, our viewers watching right now, take
Yeah.
this template, go home, be inspired. Maybe you're shopping, you see a soda, maybe you're in the candle store or soap store, and you're get inspired. Put in the comments what you created and put the recipe, and then we'll make it and give you our thoughts. We look forward to it.
Very good. And more important than that, let's have a spirited conversation anywhere online and just kind of talk about it and see what inspires you and the different flavors that you find in the different spirits and how you find unique ways to make your own signature cocktails behind the bars and then sell them, because that's really why we're here, because you need to sell that finished cocktail. Anyway, that's the spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters definition from 1806 that I use as inspiration to create cocktails. Thanks for joining me, Rob.
Dean, thanks for having us, and this is always a pleasure anytime we get together, my friend.
Happy National Flair Bartenders Day, June 10th. And this is going to take us into Cocktail Art Challenge. Rob, would you like to take us out with a setup for Cocktail Art Challenge and our esteemed anchors?
The Cocktail Art Challenge was created to showcase the art of flair bartending and the art of crafting cocktails all on one stage. They're judged on competitors from all over the nation, literally outside the world now. We have competitors from Argentina, Belgium, Nicaragua, all over New Mexico, Mexico, coming in to compete, judged on 50% flair, 50% mixology, with an accuracy 10-point bonus if they hit that as well. Anchoring the competition for the first time ever with Cocktail Network Live is an old school Flair alumni, Mr. Kevin Gibbons from Elite Bartending School. And then for mixology, we have the 5-time award-winning author, cocktail book author, as well as the USBG chair of National Health and Wellness, Miss Jules Aaron. All being judged by elite judges, judging mixology. You know her, you love her. She's been there from the past. She's here with the future. Miss Diana Green, Mr. John Cow, and Mr. Damian Williams. And at least 2 of those people have been on our show before, Dean.
Yes, yeah, and we should have John Cow on just to finish it off.
There we go. And then judging flair, we have our past winner. Dean and I were talking. We can't remember if he's won 2, 3 times at least this cocktail art challenge. Mr. Ivan Yusoff. His showmanship is phenomenal. His choreography is phenomenal, and he judged for us at the Bartender Shakedown. So it's great to see him stepping out of the spotlight to share that spotlight with others. We also have Raul Guzman, Raul Bartender, that you know him on Instagram. He helped us out many times with our charity events with Shay's Challenge and as well with Terry Baranoff, and coming back to judge again for the Cocktail Art Challenge and making it full circle. We just talked about it earlier, bringing back Shay Court from when we first did our first Cocktail Network Live event ever, I think was for Shay's Disaster Relief Fund. She's coming in and judging Flair.
Excellent. What an esteemed panel of judges. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot at risk. I don't want to say at risk, but the bartenders are really going out there to prove that they can create amazing cocktails with style, pizzazz, and flair. And I can't wait to see how it all comes together. These bartenders continue to blow me away with their quality of cocktails. You'll be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to hear Jules breaking down those flavors and watching the guys and gals on stage. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, exactly. And then the hard job, the one that the people love to hate, the deduction judges
Right.
from the IBA Puerto Rico, Mr. Francisco Javier Lopez, doing it again. This guy is a machine. He's a beast. If you've ever been to any of the IBA Pan American games, he knows how to compete, but more importantly, he knows how to look for those deductions. And helping him with deductions is Conniption Gin's own Miss Chase Moore.
Right. And let's raise the roof for Amanda Ashcraft.
Amanda Ashcraft, Kara Ashcraft running the back of the house, the merchandise table, the front of the house. JD Spradlin emceeing, which, yes, he's been on the show as well. And
Yes,
DJ Kid Carter coming back to DJ again, and bar back by Chris Austin. And there's a couple people behind the scenes that we'll announce on June 10th.
Right. So check us out. Go check out our YouTube channel and Cocktail Network Live for some of the old content from One Drink With is the show you're looking for if you don't know about it. And then on Patreon, One More Drink With, each of those same guests. Lots of great fun content out there. It's all for free. Don't be afraid of the Patreon. It's free for us at Cocktail Network Live. And yeah, Rob, have a great show tonight. Looking forward to seeing everything.
Thanks, buddy. I can't wait to
Have
have a
a
cocktail.
National Flair Bartenders Day, everybody. I just spoke over top of Rob. Bye.